Guys, welcome to another session of Interview with Entrepreneurs. And today we're chatting to Kathy Walterhouse, the founder and CEO of The Professional Rule Breaker, right? Now, we're going to chat to her about her entrepreneurial journey from being almost $1 billion sales rep, right? Through to creating this program of yours, The Professional Rule Breaker. So, Kathy, welcome. Nice having you on. And
thank you so much. I love your
really looking forward to this because sales was always my passion. So it's so lovely to chat to people that come from that kind of environment. So let's give some context to everyone first. What is the professional rule breaker? What is it? It sounds so cool, but what is it?
Doesn't it? Well, first off, I think all my life, and I didn't realize this until later on in life, I've been a bit of a rule breaker. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. In the corporate world, however, a lot of people don't know that there's a lot of very rigid protocols and rules. And I always found myself either bucking them or basically breaking the rules. And so when I left the corporate world after having a very successful career, one of the first things I thought about was like, who am I?
Yeah.
And that came into my mind, the professional rule breaker, because I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what I've been doing all my life as a kid and as in the professional. And I have to say, even my husband, when I told him what name I thought of, he was like, oh my gosh, that's so you. Yes.
That's so awesome. So what does the professional rule breaker do? What is it you teach?
So I work with new or newer entrepreneurs. Either they're brand new or they've been in the business for just a few years. And one of the things that I specialize in is I help them figure out what to say so that they can go ahead and jumpstart their sales. And of course, get more customers, more members into whatever it is that they are doing. I do a lot more than that as well. I do some consulting on the side. And there's quite a bit that I do, but that's my area right now that I'm focusing on.
So before we chat about that, let's go back a few years when you were in corporate. Okay. You were in sales, right?
Yeah.
When I first chatted to you, you said that you had done almost $1 billion. Was it almost $1 billion in sales? That's a significant amount of sales.
It is.
Right? That's not a very small amount. Take us through that journey of starting in sales, going through sales, building that career, and then why you left to decide, okay, well, I want to become a professional rule breaker, or what was that transition process like? Tell us a bit about that.
Well, I didn't always start off being successful in sales. You have to kind of find where your sweet spot is. And when I first started, I really, really had no idea. I actually never wanted to do sales. Right out of graduate school, I was getting recruited. I wanted to be a marketer.
Okay.
In the traditional sense of marketing.
Yes.
And every place I interviewed, they're like, have you ever thought about being in sales? And in my mind, I thought sales meant the slimy, in the corner somewhere, can I sell you this watch?
The car salesman.
Or maybe, unfortunately, not all used car salesmen are slimy, but that thought of being a used car salesman. And I would say, no, I'm definitely not going to do that. I ended up getting a job with an international Japanese company, being the director of marketing. The next thing I know, I'm in sales. So, but even then, I still kind of stumbled around a bit. And at that point, I had never even done a cold call. I didn't even know what a cold call was.
Right?
But I think a cold call is a great training for anybody that wants to do sales. And quite frankly, probably in real life, if you think about it, we probably do cold calls every day of our life.
We don't realize it.
We don't realize it. From you pick up the phone because you want to get a service, or you want, somebody that to do something, or maybe you don't know them, right? That in essence is a cold call. But yeah, I remember my very, very first cold call, and I'm with somebody else who had been in sales for a while. And I'm standing there just squirming because this person was ignoring me. And all I wanted to do was just hightail it out. I didn't want to do it. Didn't want to be there. And I remember saying, just stay here. And I'm like, okay, and sure enough, there goes my first cold call. Was it a little rocky? Yes. Did that person end up being one of my customers? Yes.
Yes.
So, but I think I probably had, my hands were probably shaking. I probably was a bit tongue-tied as well. And, from there, I was lucky. I had a CEO of a publicly traded company. He kind of took me under his wing and mentored me and really showed me that sales is all about the connection. And it's all about the relationship that you form with folks, whether it's in person or it's online, and then solving their problem.
I think that's the key, right? I think so many people miss that part, is they don't focus on the problem or the desire, whichever one that is, that they're trying to fulfill.
Right.
It's more like, no, you've got to just buy this thing. Why?
Well, why? Because when you're thinking that, you're thinking of yourself, right? When you're thinking of sales, you're thinking of yourself, like, I have to sell this, right? Yes. And if you flip the switch and you look at the customer instead, and you think about the customer and their problems, quite frankly, everything changes. The way the sales call is going, probably your nerves, if you have nerves, everything about the process changes.
I think that's probably one of the things that most people can learn a lot from. And I think that's where, that's what you're teaching, right? Is you're teaching people how to actually connect with the customer as an individual rather than just your product and trying to punch your product or service or, whatever the case is at the end of the day. So you were very successful. You became a really successful salesperson. What made you leave? Because I know I used to be a salesperson. I was a real, I was in tech, so I was selling, big solutions and stuff, and eventually became, sales director and then COO and all of that. But what was your motivation to leave? So I know what the people earn on that side. Why would you leave and say, listen, you bugger all of that big check and those awesome commissions, right? And let me go and go work instead of 9 to 5. Let me go do 17 hours a day and become an entrepreneur.
That's right. It's only 17.
Like, why?
I haven't found that only 17 yet. Mine's usually a little long, but yes. I think there were a lot of different reasons. Part of it, I wasn't having fun anymore. And I kind of have the philosophy, if you're not having fun, you shouldn't be doing it. I also, maybe perhaps I'm a little bit of a control freak. I like to, and I think most entrepreneurs are, because they want to, they have some passion, whatever it is, and you want to put it out in the world in your own way, and you want to control your own hours, your own everything.
Yes.
So, that definitely was part of it. And then not only that, I started helping some new entrepreneurs. And I have to say, I had so much fun doing it. It just to see people light up,
isn't it?
Yeah, just to see people light up and get it, and things that I take for granted because I've done it for so long. Especially if somebody is a brand new entrepreneur or a brand new online course creator, and they have this passion, but they have no business background possibly, or they've never sold before, or maybe they're just an introvert or whatever it might be. And I can raise my hand to that.
Yeah,
I've definitely been, and I've been on and off an introvert in my life. And, to see them go from like one little baby step, maybe make some, mistakes, because the whole thing about getting the relationship and having the connection, if you're not used to doing that, sometimes it's hard. Or if you're thinking outside of yourself, right? If you just take yourself like in real life, right? And you think about the relationships and connections you have with people, that's exactly what sales is. But you got to be able to transform that from your everyday and take it to people that you probably don't know and form that same thing. It's the same exact thing. And the online course creators, the same thing. They have to focus on that one person. They might have, 50 people on a call or whatever,
Yeah.
but just remember, you're talking to that one person.
Yeah. And that's that one ideal customer that you've identified, at the end of the day.
Yes.
Focusing on their, as you said, what was it? Their needs, right? In terms of their problem and stuff at the end of the day.
Right.
I think we actually did a survey a few months ago. We surveyed about 44,000 entrepreneurs. And we asked, it's quite a long survey. It's about 15-minute survey, but we asked all kinds of questions. And one of them is the question of, what are the things that you struggle with most as an individual within your business, right? And we had an 86% response that said sales. They don't come from a sales background. So the next question, obviously, it's conditional logic. So it says, well, do you come from sales backgrounds and that? And of that, I think it was 98% said no. So it was like, they don't come from that. And people don't understand how sales really works on a, like a one-to-one or one-to-group kind of basis. So I think what you're doing is flipping awesome, because it's such an important skill for entrepreneurs to actually have at the end of the day. So, did you start the professional rule breaker straight away when you left corporate, or was there like a gap, or did you do something else in between, or did you just?
So I knew that I wanted to do something in the business world because I kind of felt that tug to it. But also on the side, towards the end of my business career, I actually started doing some professional acting as well. So talk about left brain, right brain, right? Very, very different. They're very different, but in a weird way, they're the same, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Because when you are acting, you are taking that character and you're taking a private moment and putting it out in the public. When you're selling, you have this passion, right? And if you're really, really authentic to yourself, you really are taking some of that private you and putting it out there to the public again.
You went and became an actress as well. I actually forgot to mention that to everyone. So we got a celebrity in our midst.
I did. That's okay.
I love that. That is so
something
awesome.
Else I really love. It's just,
you get to connect with so many people on so many different levels.
Yes, the auditioning and all that is very hard, but there's nothing like being and it's going to sound weird, but there's nothing like being on set. There's just nothing like that. Yes.
I think you kind of immerse yourself into a different world, right? That's what you're doing. That's probably why you're a good salesperson. So obviously you can do that a lot easier than I think most actors can. At the end of the day.
It's the same thing. I had those moments where, I kind of, struggled a bit in the end. It's not like it's smooth sailing either, but I kind of struggled because I had this in my mind, which a lot of people also struggle with sales, is almost that not thinking that you're good enough or that you're an imposter, that, people are going to find out that you're a fraud or whatever. I kind of struggled with that in the acting world. And actually it gave me a really good lesson, because a lot of times when you get auditions or you're in front of the camera, you have this enormous amount of dialogue, and you can't be focusing on the dialogue. You got to focus on who you are, right? The character is. But in the audition process, they'll give you sometimes part of a day to turn it around, and you'll have pages. It's not like that's the only thing you have to do in a day.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
And I was so concerned with getting every single word right, being this really perfect person, perfect actor. And I realized, and I could not remember my lines. And I started thinking, is there something wrong with me? I can't remember this dialogue. And then one day I was like, oh, forget it. I'm just going to just do what I can.
The professional rule breaker, right?
Right. Exactly. Do whatever I can, and whatever happens, happens. And once you know it, I literally was word for word on the script, almost exactly. And the first 2 times that I did that, I booked. So I was like, okay, that's a big message coming my way. And it's also something that I share because, we always want everything to be perfect, but can it be perfect? No. So we just have to move ahead and just be perfectly imperfect. And
I
if you
love
make a
that.
mistake, yeah. And when you're selling something or you're on a webinar or you're doing a presentation and you make a mistake, more than likely, nobody's ever going to know except you. So, just don't worry about it.
That is so true. And I think that's something that in sales as well is something that I learned. We try and be, I remember starting off in, when I started off in sales, this is 20 plus years ago. That was giving away my age here, but starting off, it was like, okay, when I speak to this client on this cold call, I need to follow this exact script and that. And I remember my boss giving me the script that you needed to kind of follow, and I hated it. I was like, my mind couldn't comprehend it at all. It was like, no, this is not how you should speak to a customer. It just didn't sound right to me at all, so I also became that kind of little rebel that was like, well, I'll do my own thing, I'll just chat to the person as if he's a mate kind of. But that worked for me at the end of the day. Obviously it called me into a lot of disciplinaries because of it, but that kind of works from that. So let's talk a bit about the professional rule breaker, right? What are some of the lessons that you could pass on to the people that are watching now and the people that are going to watch the replays and that? What are kind of some of those tips and tricks and stuff that you can say, guys, this is what you as a new entrepreneur, can do to actually help you, on your journey with entrepreneurship?
Absolutely. Well, first off, is something I kind of mentioned before a little bit is you have to, switch your mindset first off and stop saying, I can't do this, I'm really scared, or all those type of things. That's the first thing. I actually use an acronym called SALES, believe it or not, SALES, which maybe some people like, some people don't. But the first letter starts for switch your mindset. Know that you can do this. So that's the first thing. Second is an about face. So an about face means stop thinking about yourself. Think about your customer. Who is your customer? What is it that your customer wants and what do they need? They're distinctly different. A want is something your customer will say, oh, I want a lower price. But what do they really need? They need something maybe to look good for their boss. Maybe they're having a budgeting issue. It's all the things in the background. A lot of times in sales, you can kind of think of an iceberg. So what you see in an iceberg, 80% of what you see is on top. Yeah. And what you got to do is you got to dig to that 20%. So, and find out, again, really dig on your customer. Like, who are they? If they had your solution, how would they feel? How do they feel without it? What's the reason that they're there? Why did they call you? I mean, there is a myriad of questions that you can ask. And that's one of the things. I have actually a cheat sheet to get with some prompts just to get people started on questions that they either should know the answer to or they should be asking. And one of the things I have found too is, especially if you're new, is more than likely these individuals that you are talking to, they love, you can just say, hey, I'm new at this. And can you help me understand? Can you kind of guide me on what's going on with you? Can you guide me on what you need? They love telling you that information, which leads into the L for listen. That's one area I think gets missed a lot.
It's huge. every salesperson I know talks too much.
Right? Exactly. You have to listen to what the customer is saying to you, because more than likely they are sending you out all sorts of red flags. And whether that is, online or in person, you can really see it because you see body language, you see how they're acting, you can see if they're happy, not happy, yes. How they're answering. I mean, there's a lot of telltale signs in person. So listening is a huge skill because it will give you a path to help them if you listen. E stands for emotional attachment. And I know that may sound a little bit different. But what that is sometimes what I have found, especially people that have been trying to sell for a while, they're not really in love with their product anymore or their service. Because it's hard. They're stumbling. They're really struggling to do this.
Yes.
And instead of being excited to get up every morning to do what you do, they're like, not. They're laying in bed, or they're like, oh, I have to do this today, or I have to go talk to somebody today, or whatever it is. You got, and again, I have a cheat sheet for this too with some prompts, but you got to really remember why you do what you do. Why did you start doing it? Why are you passionate about it? And how can you help other people? Because usually when you think about helping other people, that kind of usually lights people up.
Yes.
As well. And then the final S is for the story. It's your pitch. It's how you tell people what you do and kind of draw them into it. And there's all different types. There's the short 30-second version of it that I teach. And then in my course, I go into a much longer, that you can use, whether it's, doing a presentation somewhere, or doing a webinar, or doing a like one-on-one with a potential customer. You can use it for all sorts of things.
Yeah, I actually love that acronym, sales. So it's absolutely ingenious. I absolutely love that. So, I mean, I think a lot of salespeople that I know, entrepreneur salespeople, they're trying to sell their product and service. I think, based on those things that you mentioned there, the biggest one that I think they kind of struggle with is that emotional aspect and the sale and the story aspect. Those are the two that I've kind of seen with like my clients and that are, looking for assistance, and that they kind of really struggle with it. They've lost that passion for the product, or they just, they're too focused on, well, this is the feature of the product, there you go. But the client's not seeing your passion in it. You got to so what you're saying is you got to portray that passion for your own product, right? That's basically what you're saying in that. I think that's the biggest challenge. But how does someone get over that? I mean, how do you get back in touch with your emotional aspect, in touch with that emotional aspect?
So it's a lot of self-questioning is really what it is. It's kind of going back to, like, I was asking somebody this question, or somebody that was having a bit of an issue. And I said, well, tell me why in the very beginning, why did you go into the field? Why are you doing what you're doing? Like when you first started and you're like, oh, this is something I should do. What is that? Why? What was that thing that just drove you to do that? And then she kind of went, oh, that's it. And she was like, because I like being really creative. Yes. So, it's just going back to the beginning of, where you were, that you kind of started down your path, because you're probably
find your why.
About it. Yeah. Find your why. Yeah. And then there's a bunch of other questions you can ask as well. And kind of put yourself back in that same state. Like if there ever was a time that you helped somebody and they were super excited, or you solved their problem and they ended up being your best customer, or whatever it is, put yourself back into that state. One of the things I always try to do is, especially in the whole acting thing, like whether it's a good emotion or a bad emotion, I think to myself, remember that, because you can use that later. So it's the same thing when you have success, like every little success. I know Tony Robbins has this saying that I've used probably for 20 years is success is like a vitamin. So if you celebrate all these little successes, so like when you first got into it and you're like, oh, I'm so excited, celebrate that because you figured out your idea. Then like the next step that you took, celebrate that, and if you keep on doing that, you're going to be really excited about what you do every day.
I actually put a post up today about that. I was like, results become addictive was the post. You know,
I like that. I'd like to use that too.
I would go for it. And because I found that it's that little, if you're not celebrating, and I think this is also an important part for entrepreneurs to understand, is celebrate those small successes. When you do those sales, celebrate them. You know, just because your target might be $1 million or whatever, you haven't reached it. You might be on $2,000 or $5,000. Celebrate it, because I promise you, it's those celebrations that, you know, it changes your entire mindset when you're doing it. It's like, I've done this. Let's set the next goal. That's another $1,000, another $1,000, or whatever the case is, you know, and taking it forward on that. Now let's talk about, I want to talk more about your business, but I've got one more question on your sales acronym is story. I think, now you must correct me if I'm wrong in terms of my understanding of it. I mean, I kind of followed like the hook story, you know, offer kind of methodology. So, you know, my 3-second hook that I could say something to someone that tweaks their interest. And my story is taking someone on a journey, you know, of, you know, why this, whether if I'm selling myself, this is who I am, this is my entire journey and stuff, and not focusing on my product necessarily or my service, but actually telling about me. Tell me about that part, the story part, because I think that is a part that most salespeople miss, is they're not telling any story. There's no story going to the client.
Right. Well, I think a lot of it is, especially in the corporate world, but sometimes even outside of that, you have this preconceived notion, right, of who you should be. Or they tell you, this is like what you said early on, they told you what to say.
Yes.
That is, I know when I've ever been in a situation where they're like, well, we want you to focus, and it doesn't matter if it's low level, high level, it seems like they always want to tell you what to say. And I find that your customers or your potential customers know right off the bat that it's inauthentic, and that all you're doing is focusing on the sale instead of focusing on them. So it's really important to be authentic to who you are, you know, bring yourself into what it is that you're saying, you know, your story. So just going back. So again, it was like the why, you know, why did you get into what you were doing? And just start off with that. You know, my passion is working with new entrepreneurs because I see how they light up, you know, something like that, you know, that is something that gives me energy. But I wasn't always that great salesperson. Yeah. I started off as an introvert. I didn't know what I was doing. I was scared. I was shaking. I was tongue-tied. I'll talk about being tongue-tied. You know, I had an episode where my boss was watching me. I was like always number one in the company. She's like, I got to watch you do this in a trade show.
Oh my word, that's the worst.
Right? So she moves up a couple feet and I'm like, I couldn't say anything. Afterwards, I was like, what is that? So, but is that self-conscious again, you know, again, not telling myself the right things, you know, saying, oh my gosh, she's watching, I'm not good enough, you know, get rid of that. But it's being authentic to who you are. Bring your special sauce, whatever it is. You know, if you're an excited personality, if you like to use your hands, you know, whatever it might be, if you like to dress in a certain way, do it. Actually, I'll tell you a story. There was many years in my early sales career, they sent out a memo and they said, no one is to wear red.
No.
Because red is, red
you're still rebelling.
yeah. Red is the color of aggression. So what did I do the next day? All red from head to toe.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. But that is just like, you know, don't let other people tell you what to do, and don't let other people's notions or what you think you see other people doing, you know, bring your own story of who you are, you know, to the customer, because that's how you build the connections with the customer. And I think it's almost impossible to sell unless it's like very transactional. If you don't have a relationship with the customer.
Very much, very much. I think, yeah, definitely. I'm just trying to think, how would people like, if we're looking at entrepreneurs that are like e-commerce, let's say they're
Okay.
in e-commerce or drop shipping or something along those lines, how would they authentically connect with a customer to sell?
So are they solely a web business,
So
web-based
solely
business?
online, so solely online kind of business.
Okay.
What kind of tips could we give? Because I mean, they still need to get the story across, right? They still need to provide the necessary hooks. They still need to connect with the customer and show them who they are to buy online. I mean, you've shopped online before, and if the site looks nice, you can kind of connect with the person. Let's say it's a lady selling an online course or whatever the case is, and she comes across like really, oh, this is such an awesome product, or she's maybe showing you a blender. It could be a blender, right? And the owner is actually holding that blender and talking or doing a video about it or something. You're more likely to buy that than go and buy it off Amazon, right? So 100%, even though they're more expensive, you're probably more likely to buy from her. Why? Because I feel a personal connection to her and that. Okay.
So I think in this day and age, we have it a little, I think e-commerce has it a little bit easier because there's so much social media, right? In social media, you can show let's say it's a corporate e-commerce, right? So you can't put a lot on the website, but you can put a lot on social media. You can have, lives, you can do all sorts of things. It's interesting because I'll give you an example. Like just recently, I found this clothing store. I don't even know how I found it. It was an online clothing store, and I don't know if I saw something I liked or what. Somehow I got on their list. They're kind of probably, through all the back end, the analytics, they found me that way. So one of the things that they've started doing just recently, and I have to say, I actually gravitate towards this, is they'll have a sale. They'll put it on. And you have to understand, I don't really shop, but they'll put it on and they will do a Facebook Live and an Instagram Live. And they are wearing the clothes and they're like, look at this and look at this and look at this, almost like a home shopping network.
Yes,
but it's not like that, and they're fun. And, it's kind of like, oh, well, look at that. And she's like, they have people of all different sizes. So I'm like, well, that person's my size. That might fit me or whatever, but it gives, what they're doing is they are being really what I consider to be authentic to their brand. They're having fun. And they are drawing you in because they are who they are. They all have this Southern accent with a big twang, and and it's just fun to watch, and it's like they're talking to you. And that's what you want is you want that customer to connect with you and know that you see them.
I love it. You've just killed that entire argument of every e-commerce person that I've ever met, because they come to me and say, yeah, but how can we personally connect with someone? We've got an online e-commerce store. And I kind of say the same thing as you do, is it's like, well, you go do it live, or even just a video. If you don't want to do it live, do a video of yourself putting on the clothes, like you said, or, opening this box with the cell phone or the cell phone cover that you've got. Open it up and show, oh, look at this, check this out. It can be 5 seconds, 10 seconds, it doesn't matter. You're creating that personal connection. And what that is that's the branding. What they don't realize is that there's a sales process. It's not all about the conversion aspect. You've got to create that awareness, that interest, consideration before you even get to the let's close the deal stage, right?
Right.
I think a lot of people, new entrepreneurs that don't come from sales, kind of think, okay, it's sales. But there's a whole process beforehand that you kind of got to go through to nurture the person. Am I right?
There is. I mean, you could think of as the actual transaction as the icing on the cake. So you have to build all these different layers of the cake before you get to the icing, right? So it's really important, to build that connection, to build that relationship, to build the social trust. I mean, the other thing that the e-commerce folks can do is that social trust, right? I mean, I see some e-commerce where they'll have like, I don't know, GE uses us and so-and-so uses us and so-and-so uses us. But what they really need is maybe a video of somebody from that company going, we started using this and they solved XYZ.
Yes,
problem
exactly.
for me, or something like that.
It
You
needs
know,
to be
where-
the
and
person
like
in
an
that.
average person, not
Yeah.
necessarily, I mean, could you have a CEO have a video say that? Yes. But then have like some of the other people, you know, so you have everybody from all the different walks of life.
100%. I think that's where, based on who your ideal customer audience is, you know, whether that is a house mom or a CEO, at the end of the day, that's the person that needs to be in that video so that the person buying can relate. There needs to be that relation. I mean, if you're selling baby clothes and that, you know, having a CEO standing there with baby clothes ain't going to help much, right? You need a mom kind of standing there. It's like, look at my child and holding a child up upside down with the baby clothes. Yeah. So Mark, on Facebook, Mark says, so build your brand, build your personal brand with social media, right?
Yes.
Sell yourself first.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And then, but also focus on your customer. What do they want? And how can you solve their problem? Right. So even the testimonials is all about, you know, they're seeing someone like themselves in which you're solving their problem. And they can look at them and go, oh, they have the same problem I have. Maybe this company can solve my problem too. So that's just a different way of looking at it too.
Mark says that's people buying from people. People buy from people.
Yes, I have a rule actually that I use, and I
is it one of those you break?
No, this is the one I don't break. I hope not. I hope not. My rule is sell to people like you would want to be sold.
I love that.
Yeah. So you don't want somebody coming over and hitting you over the head going, buy my product, buy my product, buy my product. No, right? Yeah. So you want them to take you by the hand and lead you, you know, down a path where you can see, you know, that they can solve your problem and you trust them and you have the connection.
100%. I absolutely love that. I think there's so much people can learn from you in terms of that. Let's talk a bit about your business. Have you had to, one of the questions that we got a whole lot of questions prior to starting all of these interviews, so we're interviewing a whole lot of people. What are the kind of questions you want to know? So pivoting, have you had to pivot your business at all? Okay.
Yes.
Tell us about that. Why and how did you do it? Because it is one of the biggest, it's one of the top 5 fears for most entrepreneurs that are struggling. They're like, I need to pivot. I'm scared to pivot. I'm not going to pivot. And they end up, you know, crashing and burning instead of just doing it. So talk to us about your story on pivoting and how people should deal with it, or how you dealt with it rather.
So I think as entrepreneurs, we need to pivot almost every day. But for me, like originally when I decided to develop a course, for example, I was going to teach everything about sales from soup to nuts. So from beginning sales all the way to negotiating multi-million-dollar deals. That's what I was planning on doing. And you know what I was doing? I was making a fatal mistake there. I was focusing on what I thought my customer needed rather than what they need. So quickly, I figured out, just because I spent some time interviewing a lot of people I wanted to be my target market. So I found my target market and I interviewed a lot of people, and it was really to the basics, like knowing, so many of them said, I have no idea how to say what it is that I do. I heard that over and over and over again. So that is why, I put something together for that. I actually have a challenge, a 5-day challenge for that, just to teach people, in their own authentic way, how to very quickly say what it is that they do. So it was a massive pivot, right? When you think about, negotiating multi-million-dollar deals to starting off how to say what it is that I do. So that was a huge pivot. But I mean, my goal is to help these new entrepreneurs. And when I started seeing, so those ones that initially said to me, I have no idea how to say what it is that I do. And I'm like, okay, let's work on it. Let's figure this out, And I just saw them again light up. And I was like, bingo, that's it. And it made me feel good too. in addition to it.
So, I mean, you kind of mentioned research there. And I want to focus on it because that was one of the questions, the importance of research. How important is research really? Was one of the questions from someone. And I mean, how important was that to you pivoting your business and or even starting your business and getting to where you are now? How important is that research component?
Yeah. I mean, it made it night or day for me. I mean, I did have someone else who is in the big online space. They said, oh, you need to focus on the corporate end, a very high end dollar, because you could easily do that. But that wasn't what was juicing me. It was the smaller entrepreneurs that I was getting that. And if I had not heard that from a multitude of the newer type entrepreneurs, I probably would never have pivoted to that, because something I took for granted was something that they needed. So I really think that, you know, you need to keep it as simple as possible and let people have wins along the way of whatever it is. If you're selling a service, or whether it's, you know, even a product, you know, there's some wins that you can have when people start using the products that might be real simple wins, you know, and because that way you keep them engaged and they're in kind of your life cycle, right? Because you're always going to be, as entrepreneurs, we're always going to be developing new things, right? Yes, so if they really like what you started with, they're going to keep on buying your products. Just like, I don't know, you know, I'm trying to think of a food brand that maybe started off with like one product and now they have many because people really like that one product, but because they liked it so much, they're like, oh gosh, they have this flavor and then they have this flavor and they have this flavor.
McDonald's.
Yeah. So it, you know, you keep them in your, basically your brand life cycle. And that's a great thing, because, you know, then instead of always having to go out and have a cold market and do cold calls, you literally have this very warm marketplace in front of you.
Fantastic. So, I mean, one thing that you've mentioned a few times now as we've been chatting is find your why, you know, and you're kind of leading on to being authentically you. And this is something you've now said it. And from every interview that I've done, the last, 14 or whatever, that we've done, everyone says, find your why and be authentically you. I mean, it's such a reoccurring theme out there. And I think so many entrepreneurs don't really understand how to do that, you know, how do they find their why, you know, how do they become authentically there? They've got this misconception that, well, they got to act in a certain way, you know, because they're in entrepreneurial business owner and that. And I think they don't understand that be yourself, you're more likely to attract the people you want to work with rather than the people you're not going to enjoy working with if you're fake, right?
Right. Well, the thing is people will see it 100% of the time. If you are fake or you're not enjoying it or it's not your passion, they're going to see it. Like alarm bells are going to be going off and you're never going to sell to those people in a million years. I'll use an example. So when I was doing some of the interviews, I was interviewing this individual, and she was putting something together. She's an online course creator, and she was putting something together in like an education space that she had always been in. I could tell she was just kind of like, oof, you know, it was just because that was her current market. That was what she thought that she should be doing. And I don't know, I could just see that she wasn't really excited about it. So I just started asking her some questions because she happened to mention like one little tidbit.
Yeah.
And I kind of saw a little flash of light. So I started asking her questions about it was kind of like an offshoot. And the more I asked her questions about it, the more excited she got. She got really, really excited about it. And then she ended up changing. She changed that from this market that she was like, I'm just doing it because I can, to something that she absolutely loved. And then that was a game changer for her, but me as an outsider, it was really easy to see that. But I think
people are too close to their products or services. Do you think that that's
you
kind of
get blinded? Yeah, you get tunnel vision, right?
100%.
So I think, there's a lot of different ways, you can brainstorm about all the different things that that you like to do that maybe might still fit into the same wheelhouse of what it is that you currently do, but it's a bit of an offshoot.
One of the biggest ones is probably, connecting with other entrepreneurs that, inspire you in that, because those people are, when you look at them and you're watching how happy and, they are in terms of doing that. I mean, that automatically inspires you. I like it when I watch someone like yourself doing what you do and I look at other people, I'm like, oh, this is so freaking awesome, and it kind of inspires me in my business again as well. So I think, we can learn a lot and we can kind of find our why, go back to our why when we're inspired by people that we actually admire, or follow,
right,
etc. as well. So let's talk about your first.
The energy will just grow, like exactly what you said, right? Because you get inspired and you're inspiring other people, and it kind of is like this vicious circle, but in a good way, because everybody gets really excited. So, and that's the thing, work with people that are, people that hold you accountable, work with other, if you're lucky, get a mentor, right? Or get in these groups like yourself that you have, where you have all these different entrepreneurs that people are willing to bounce ideas off of each other. And you can even say, hey, this is what I'm doing. How does this sound? Or whatever, or this is how I'm saying something. And that's even one of the reasons why I'm doing this challenge is I want people to work on their pitch, in essence, their story. And I want them to do it. I want them to practice it with their friends or family, their business, whatever, with me, whomever it might be, so they figure out what lands and what doesn't land. Because you'll know yourself when something lands. You'll know yourself when you're really excited about something that you can put out in the world.
100%. I kind of struggle with it in like my Facebook group, because we don't have people ready. They're scared to ask the question. I get on average about 50 or 60 messages a day, from people on the group that ask me the questions in Messenger. And I say, well, don't you want to post this to the group, because it's like really relevant. No, I'm kind of shy, in terms of that. And what kind of advice can you give to that kind of entrepreneur to say, listen, one of the ways that you can actually become a better salesperson, and break the rules, as you say it, is you need to get out there. You need to kind of like, don't be scared. Put your question out there. The people around you, they'll support you. Find those people that are going to support you in that. I mean, how do you find that person because most people are introverts. Most entrepreneurs that I've met tend to be introverts.
Absolutely.
Okay? Definitely. So they're terrified to put it out there, scared, or someone else is going to criticize me because I asked a question. Because you do get it on some groups, you get kind of attacked if you ask a silly question. But for me, there's no such thing as a silly question. It's like, just ask it. Go ahead. Put it out there.
So I would say I have a couple answers for that. So the first thing is change your mentality on, if you ask this question, what do you have to lose? Nothing, right? Nothing. But you might gain a bunch of answers. Right. And you're not
going to be worse off.
Right. You might gain some people that that pop up that might be your peers that can help you along the way, that you can continually bounce things off of. So you have nothing to lose. I actually use that a lot. And I kind of use that in the beginning when I was scared, to do sales and, the in-person sales and the cold calling and all that type of stuff. I just thought, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen? Well, they'll just kick me out of here. But so what? Who cares, right? So that's the thing. And then also, I would say, just give who cares if it's silly? Give yourself permission, to be imperfect, right? You're never going to learn. You're never going to get to that next, because, as an entrepreneur, don't we all want to up level? Don't we want to get to the next level, right? And if you don't ask those questions, you're going to be stuck. And you're going to be one of those folks that had all these great passions, right, of things that they wanted to do. And a year from now, you're going to be in the same spot. So just dive in, like just go for it is all I can say.
100%. Let's talk about your first customer at the professional rule breaker. Now, you being, top star salesperson, I can imagine it wasn't really hard to get your first customer. But one of the questions that we've got here, is, how hard was it to get your first customer in your company?
It was not easy, I would say. I had to figure out my messaging a bit. And also just kind of bring it down because I had so much success earlier. There were individuals that were a little bit scared, so I had to show people that I'm just like they are. I'm human. You have to be able to.
Because you were up there. That's just like you think most people won't be able to relate to that. It's quite a.
But you know what? I'm just like everybody else. I started somewhere. Everybody starts from the beginning, and I wasn't there in the beginning for sure. And were there times that I really struggled? Yeah, absolutely. Were there times I'm thinking, oh, I'm never going to be able to sell this product? Absolutely. And then I had to go back and look at the end in mind of helping the customer and how can I relate that story and all the little pieces that all the little pieces that get you there to do that. So I think for me, it's been a little bit more word of mouth, which has been really great. That's the best
organic
way of selling, right?
Yeah.
That organic, like, hey, you should talk to her because she can help you type of thing.
Yeah.
That is by far the best thing, but it's just trial and error in the beginning, figuring out how it is that you're going to say, even for me, how I'm going to say what it is that I do, what lands and what terminology. Like for me, I do a lot with the online course creators. Their terminology is different than like the corporate world, vastly different. Things like I call everybody customers. I'm still struggling to get people trying not to use that. I instead online it's more, members or course sales or things like
subscribers
that.
Or, that kind of stuff.
Subscribers. Right. Exactly. Yes.
So, one of my questions now is, and it's actually relating to a question someone's asked, they're asking about marketing versus sales. So my question, I just want to clarify the question here, is what they're asking is that are the lines blurred? Have the lines become blurred between sales and marketing? Because traditionally we've had people marketed and then you had your salespeople, they sold, right? But right now, when you look at the online space and the online world, that's now completely interlaced, right?
You can't do one without the other.
Yeah.
And I think even from the very beginning, I think I had some preconceived notions of what marketing was and what sales was. And then I did figure out that you can't, all the functions of, traditional marketing and then traditional sales, you can't do one without the other. So it is really important. Marketing is, we do that every day of our life. We just don't know it. We do sales every day of our life. We just don't know it. It's how do you present yourself, right? And that's kind of the marketing end. That's your brand story. Everything that's attached to that. And then how do you bring this engagement? How do you get people engaged? How do you show them that you are the right fit for them? That's the sales end of it.
So marketing is kind of like, marketing is that journey that you're taking someone from first contact all the way through the entire lifetime. So marketing is the journey, and sales is really just those little points in between on the journey where they might buy a product. Whether it's a shampoo every month, or it's a bicycle, or it's a car, or it's a course, or whatever the case, different stages in that journey. So the one sits on top of the other. One can't work without the other anymore in an online space. It's basically what you're saying.
It's intertwined.
100%.
And it's intertwined in all the social media as well too. So yes.
100%. So let's talk about what is that one thing, where one of the questions is, what is the one thing you needed to change within yourself to become who you are today? That's the question.
Okay. Only
it's
one?
quite a tough one, actually. So because it's never just one thing, but what's that one thing?
The one thing. So for me, I suffered a lot. I think I've always been a bit of the underdog. I think early on as a child, I was, bullied and didn't think I was good enough. I suffered a lot from that. What the term is imposter syndrome. But in reality, what it is thinking that you're not good enough, that somebody's going to figure out that you're a fraud in some shape or form. And that is something, I did some research on it. It's like 70% of, people in the world suffer from that, which I was kind of shocked by, but it's a lot, especially if you are high performing perfectionist, type of individual, you'll even suffer more from it as well. But that is something I had to, let go and just kind of stand in who I was. I mean, I remember almost like the day that I decided to do that, because I just got tired. I got tired of that feeling. I got tired, and I knew, I had big goals, and I knew that in my life, I wasn't going to achieve them if I stayed, in essence, I'm going to use the term wallflower. I don't know if you know what that means over there. Yeah. Just cowering in the corner, being afraid not to ask questions. I didn't want to raise my hand, right? To ever ask questions. I can tell you right now, in a group, I will ask questions, or something like that. So, so again, it's just making that conscious effort and changing my mindset. I actually have a masterclass on my website that's all about fear of selling and imposter syndrome. And I go over this whole mindset shift in there. And it's being, conscious of what it is that you say to yourself, and start changing what it is that you say to yourself.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, then people watching, and they're going to watch the replay, that guys, log into our membership area, go look at Kathy's profile there. All the links are there to her website and everything else. So click there and actually go check it out. I know I suffered from imposter syndrome. That was a big thing for me. And I didn't just suffer from it once. It was several times during my last,
right? It'll haunt you.
Yeah, right. Like 25, 30-year career. It was imposter syndrome, and a certain aspect. And then it was a different aspect, etc. And it's important that you identify that you're suffering from it. That's right. Number one. And two is go through that process with an expert, to actually deal with that. I think that's the important part. I've tried to deal with it myself too, but I always find that it's easier for me to actually connect with someone else to say, help me through this process, whether that's a 2-week or 4-week or even 3-month process, whatever that is, is take me through that process, because you come out so much stronger. Your mindset's completely different, and you're suddenly not scared anymore. I mean, when I did Upstart Entrepreneur, and I started, even recently, like doing these interviews, I've always been like, I don't do lives, I'm not going to do videos and stuff. My courses are videos. That's great. That's the only ones I do, but I don't do any of the others. And this is years of being a mentor, doing stuff, but I'm not going to do it. It was like, I just don't want to, I didn't feel right about it. But it's one of those things, are you really good enough or are you not? At the end of the day, it's kind of saying, F it. I'm going to do it anyway. Right? Screw it. I'm going to do it anyway.
Exactly. So, right? Again, what do you have to lose?
Exactly. But that was it. It's like, so what? Who cares? At the end of the day, it's only myself judging myself. And when I realized that, it was like, okay, it's actually not other people judging me. I'm judging myself. And that's where your problem is. So let's talk about what kind of failure. The question is, what kind of failures or setbacks have you had in your business, and how did you deal with it? That was one of the questions.
Interesting question.
Because we've all had them. We've all had that kind of setback.
Yeah, we
It's kind of
absolutely.
like,
I think about, because you know what? I think with failures, I actually kind of, as much as they're painful, I kind of like failures because you can, if you learn from your failure, you can be really, really successful. You know, you can flip the switch. So, I would say, I mean, gosh, there's been so many already. I'm just trying to think.
What's that one that stands out? But that's why
one?
you're a successful entrepreneur, right? I mean, you've been through so many like setbacks and failures and that, and you've learned from those. It's actually taken you.
You got to cheer. You got to cheer the failures.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be where you are. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Right. No, exactly. I would say, being inauthentic. Like I did a webinar. Same thing with you, like the whole Facebook Live and, putting yourself out there. I did not show my face in the webinar. And I'm like, what am I doing? Right. I had all these slides.
Yeah.
It was a good webinar.
Yeah.
People learned from that webinar. And then when I got off, I was like, what was that? That is not who I am. I needed to mix the technology. I needed to be front and center multiple times, throughout it, maybe even answering questions, at certain parts or whatever. But I had a little itty bitty bout of that imposter syndrome, like, and it's not like I haven't done webinars. I've done a gazillion webinars and I've done a whole bunch of presentations, but this was for my business. So yes, so that's what the difference was. So I learned from that. And the funny thing is part of the course that I have that's after the challenge has to do with wildly successful webinars.
I love it.
And yeah, I think the name is Fear to Fierce, how to deliver wildly successful webinars, and it is, not only does it go through kind of the sales process and the, helping people with fear, but it's also about showing up as yourself and putting yourself, who cares what you look like? Who cares if your hair's a mess or whatever it is, or your background may not look great or what, who cares? Go out there, show, the good, bad, and the ugly of yourself, and people are going to love you for it.
I love that. That is brilliant. I absolutely love that. So one of the questions is, and I'm going to expand on this question. You're a wife, you're an actress, yes. You're a professional rule breaker, course creator, mentor. You're doing like a stack
mother
of things.
Three boys.
Mother of three boys, boys
yes.
too. Mother of three boys.
Mother of 5 pets. Yeah.
And 5 pets too. There you go.
Yeah.
I've got all of these things. The question is, how do you find your work-life balance? All of that going on.
Right. No, I make it, I think it's really important to have work-life balance. So, first off, my youngest he's ending his high school, which is like, before they go off to college. And I don't want to miss any of that. So I make sure that I'm available every night, before, after he comes home from football practice, we talk, we have dinner or whatever, I make that effort to always do that. But not only that is I am a big scheduler. I schedule everything. I actually use like a charting software as well too, Lucid Charts. I don't know if I should be saying that or not. But so that I see all the little pieces, like when I get the big picture in my mind, I'm a lot more efficient as well. Am I always efficient? No, for sure no. But I try to, and then on the weekends, I really try, will I check email like maybe first thing in the morning or something like that? But I really try to stay off of the business, because no, you need that energy. You need to rejuvenate. You need to be able to live your life, right? So that you can, go gangbusters, come Monday morning. Again, it's not every weekend like that for me, but I try my best, to have some off time. on the weekends as well. And there's that saying too, that if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person. So, because they'll get it done.
100%, 100%. I actually love that. That's brilliant. I mean, I do a lot of scheduling myself, and I can relate to you talking about the big picture, because when I schedule and I put everything into that big picture and I'm breaking it down into different things on my schedule, because I also use a scheduler, it kind of, I feel like I'm more in control because I'm a control freak, right? So I'm like, I want to be in control. I need to control this. I need to know where this is going and when it's going to get there. And I do the project plan. It's almost like a mini project plan, really. It's like this one, then that one, then that one. This is the whole process. And it even goes into my calendar. So it's booking off times for all of these different tasks and that. And being a single dad too, it's hard because I've got my daughter, and she's almost 18 now, and I want to spend this last time before she goes traveling and does all this other stuff. I'm like, no, so I'm thinking of excuses to keep her with me, but
we're trying the hardest too.
But, sorry, the credit card was maxed out. You can't go travel. Something along those lines. I don't know. I'll come up with something. Okay, so we're over time, and I really do apologize for this, but I've got two more questions for you.
Okay.
One of the questions that someone's asked here is, what is that one or two things that would make me a successful entrepreneur like you?
Oh.
I was like, okay. Well, there you go. That is like, I love the question. I really love that question.
I love that question.
It's a really cool question. Kathy, what would you say is those one or two things that someone can do to be a successful entrepreneur like you?
I would say probably two things is never quit, like be tenacious, never give up. And if something doesn't work, you got to pivot. It's always like, that's why I said entrepreneurs, we're always pivoting, right?
Yeah.
Something doesn't work quite right, just make a little shift. That didn't work, make another little shift. Keep on making these teeny little shifts until you land on what works. Also, I would say my other thing is, and it was a funny thing, because I was just talking to my youngest son about this, because he's very similar to who I am, is go out there with the mentality that you're going to win. And, always just go out there like you're going to do this, right? You're going to find a way, don't go out with like, I think I can do this, or I'm not sure I can do this. Go out with the mentality that you're going to just knock people's socks off, and will you all the time? Absolutely not. Lord knows I haven't all the time. So, but if you have that mentality, you're always going to be striving, to achieve, whatever that is.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I would say. And if they need help, they can contact me anytime.
Yes, guys. Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Contact Kathy. Last question. What's next for the professional rule breaker?
What's next? Okay. Well, there's lots of things that are next, but in the imminent future, I'm launching a challenge called Tongue Tied to Pitch Perfect starting November 1st. And everyone from your circle can use a coupon code that's called Dennis, DENIS, and you can go for free.
Fantastic.
To this challenge. And then after that, I'm going to do my my course as well, the Fear to Fierce that we talked about a little bit earlier.
I love that one.
Yes. And then I'm looking to do a membership, because I want to continually being able to offer different aspects of business that entrepreneurs need, more in the sales area, bringing in people that are successful in their own right, like you. So I'm hoping you're going to say yes for some time.
There you go. Yes. I'm in. I'm in. Definitely.
And I also would like to have a summit, so as well, with a lot of speakers like yourself. So,
that would be awesome. I love summits, especially when it's a nice combination of people with different skills. Yes. I love those.
Right, everybody complements each other, and then it's a big win for the people that attend, because they get the flavor of everything. Yes,
exactly. You need that flavor, that complete flavor of everything in it. So I absolutely love it. Kathy, thanks so much. Guys, if you're watching live or you're going to be watching the replay and that, please log into our membership area. I'm actually going to just share my screen here just for a second. Let me just quickly get my screen shared here. If you log into our membership area, and you scroll down to Kathy, you'll be able to obviously watch the replay and stuff, get a bit about Kathy, but you can connect with Kathy, on Facebook, Instagram, on her website, via email, etc. In terms of that offer, that very generous free offer that she's given, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw that into the bonuses section over here. So you'll be able to access it there so that you can connect directly with Kathy there as well. So Kathy, thanks so much. It was really awesome chatting to you. You definitely inspired me too. So thanks so much. It was lovely having you on.
Fine. It's been so much fun. And guess what, Dennis? You inspired me too.
It sounds like a sales pitch.
No, let's keep this energy going.
I love it. Oh, thanks so much, Kathy. Guys, thank you very much. And we'll chat to you at the next session. Cheers, Kathy. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.